Ah, yes, that magical time of the year. The air turns cold, the trees have shed their leaves, and the time that many of us have waited 3 seasons for is finally upon us. No, not the holidays. Hunting season, of course. More specifically, rifle season. A time in which confidence and precision are of the utmost importance, both of which require equal parts of skill set and quality equipment. That being said, it's no wonder that both hunters and long-range shooters alike share not only much of the same skill set and knowledge base, but also choice in products in order to achieve precision at any range. And I think it's safe to say that one of the most important products involved in that is a good scope. So today we'll be reviewing just that, a scope, or HPVO rather, that not only offers a huge value without cost considered, but when you do consider the cost compared to those that are much more expensive with less features, well, we just may be talking about one of the biggest up-and-coming contenders in the long-range scope market. So what exactly are we here to talk about today? Well, this is the Heimdall 6-24 first focal plane scope by a brand known as GUNNR. That's GUNNR, and no, it's not inspired by an early 2000s rap metal band, though honestly, I kind of wish it were. It's actually inspired by Norse mythology, which you'll see trending across all their product names as well as the namesake itself. But branding aside, GUNNR's actually been making quite a name for itself in recent years, and in fact, I actually already own one of their products. As you see here on my Self-Defense 556, I have a 1-8 LPVO by GUNNR. So while this is a new product to me, I do have long-standing experience with the brand, and I'm here to tell you, they make great stuff. With that in mind, it should be noted that GUNNR did send this out for my review. So first and foremost, shout out to GUNNR. Thank you very much for the opportunity. But equally important is knowing that just because I already own one of their products does not influence my review on this one. Something also very important for those of you at YouTube. While products featured in this video were sent out for review, this is not a paid promotion, brand endorsement, or partner deal of any kind. This channel does not sell nor promote the sale of firearms or firearm-related products. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now that's enough chit-chat. Let's hit the range and go put in some work. So we're out here on the range ready to put the GUNNR Heimdall scope to the test. And if you're wondering why I'm fully winterized down to a balaclava, no, it's not just for style points. It's because I live in the Midwest, it's December, and it's literally freezing. However, the additional style points certainly don't hurt the cause. As for the weapon of choice for this review, I'm going to be going with the CMMG Resolute chambered in 6mm arc. Not only do I feel this is a great match in terms of purpose, but it's also aesthetically quite pleasing as well. Anyhow, we're going to go ahead and get zeroed at 100 yards and then continually push things back further and further using different shooting styles to see whether or not the GUNNR Heimdall is your next scope. For a full list of specs, be sure to check out GUNNR's website. But I did want to cover some of the more unique features, starting with the German shot glass. This makes your sight picture crystal clear and glare resistant, and is one of the most renowned types of optic glass in the industry. You also get zero stop turrets, which allow you to remove your turret cap after zeroing your rifle and create a stopping point on your zero dial reading, making for rapid adjustment if you're dialed up and need to quickly return to your preset zero. As for the adjustments themselves, the Heimdall is also rather unique as it uses 8 MOA adjustments as opposed to the industry standard quarter MOA. This allows for more precise adjustments, sort of akin to a mil scope. You also have a parallax adjustment that goes all the way up to 1800 yards, and another feature that I personally love is the bullet drop compensator reticle, which also has 6 setting illumination. In between each level of illumination is an off stop, so you don't have to cycle through every level. You can just preset to the nearest off stop, and with one click, you're where you want to be. And as for daytime performance, well, I think this speaks for itself. All right, so we're at 100 yards, which is going to be our zero. Now, I have fired a few shots at 50 yards just to help speed things up a bit, and that is my typical process, especially when dealing with the scope right out of the box, because those familiar know that those first shots can literally be feet away from your intended point of impact, which was the exact case with this scope. So now we're going to go ahead and fire a few shots at 100, get a feel for where they're landing, make some more adjustments, and get things tightened up. All right, let's go check it out. All right, so for the initial first shots, that's not too bad. I could probably dial in a little bit, bring that up. I did kind of course correct after I saw this one hit, which I shouldn't have done. Should have just laid it in the same spot. But these two were aiming pretty much at the same center point. So maybe a little elevation adjustment and we'll be good to go. All right, we made some very slight adjustments, so we're gonna see if we can tighten up that group a bit. All right, I think we got her. Let's go check it out. So after one slight adjustment, we are dead center and 1 MOA all day. And yes, the good Lord did bless me with a thumb that is exactly 1 inch in length. He must have known I was going to be a shooter. So we're going to go ahead and roll with that for sake of ammo and direct correlation with my poorness, and move on to a little 3-inch medallion trick shot that I like to do at 100 yards after I get zeroed. Let's see if we can smack this guy dead center. Definitely smacked the hell out of it. So no spalling on the target that we shot it off the top of, so that's a good sign. And boy, howdy, look how far back this guy got sent. All right, so not dead center, but we'll just blame it on the wind. Now here's something you don't see every day, a semi-quick draw at 100 yards using a high-powered scope on a long rifle. But hey, why not? I'm really glad I hit that because 6 arc ain't cheap. If you like what you've seen so far, then boy do I have a deal for you. If you head over to GUNNR's website and use this code right here, you'll save 15% on the Heimdall 6-24 first focal plane scope. I mean, it's not like any of us need an excuse to buy a new gun product, but hey, at least now you have a good one. So while this one is wildly impractical, it's still pretty awesome. And I suppose it does say something about the scope. And perhaps you could even pull it off on a deer, though for the record, I do not recommend it, nor condone it. Anyway, 150-yard double tap. All right, the 100-yard medallion shot was too easy, so we're going to set her up on top of this little tee. See if we can smack her off of there at 200 yards. All right, so I got my holdovers all sorted out all the way back to 400 yards, so we're going to go ahead now, fine-tune this thing with a little 3-inch medallion trick shot at 200 yards. Or maybe just explode my T-frame. Either way, we're going to make sure you can see it. Now, you know we're low budget, so you'll have to forgive me here, but nevertheless, you can still see it. Nice. Didn't even destroy my T-frame. Let's go check out the hit mark. Now, I did aim a little high to try to avoid hitting that T-frame or spalling it out too hard, But I do got to give the Heimdall credit for being so precise to let me hit that first try and keeping me from walking in below freezing temperatures. Looks like we got a little bit of spalling there on the front, but no serious damage. And let's take a look. Yep, definitely hit it high up there on that top corner, in fact. But hey, first shot at 200 yards on a 3-inch medallion. I'll take it. So we're at 350 yards and the sun is pretty much right in our eyes. So we're going to fire a few shots with these conditions to test the eye box and eye relief in a few ways. First of all, as you see, we're using a stool and a tripod, and this isn't like an ARCA setup. This is just a free floating tripod. I just happen to have the rifle balanced on it. And this setup is actually kind of what I use typically when I'm out hunting and sitting in one place for a long period of time and not utilizing a blind or laying prone. So with that being said, we're going to have kind of a real world example of just how affected your eye box and eye relief are by things like the unsteadiness, the sway, your breathing, things like that that come into play with a tripod, as well as that highlight environment. So not bad at all. I mean, I will say this scope does have a pretty tight eye box, meaning that the eye relief is kind of unforgiving compared to some of the other scopes that I use. However, even with the sun in my eyes, it was very easy to stay on target, very crisp sight picture, and overall, not bad. So I accidentally dropped this rattle can and broke the spray nozzle off of it, and there's still quite a bit of paint left in it. So we're going to try to make the best of it. We're going to go back to 350 yards and fire a shot that will hopefully go straight through it, blow up the rattle can, and still ting the target behind it. So here we are, 350 yards through a rattle can and still hitting the target with the sun conveniently in our eyes. And this is a one and done deal, so here's to hoping we get it. Get you guys zoomed in. Nice. Oh, dang. I hope that looked as cool for you guys' view as it did mine. Heck yeah. Stoked on that one. So something I've yet to mention regarding my zeroing process at long range with this scope is that I've opted to utilize the bullet drop reticle and holdovers as opposed to dialing up for longer yardage, creating a dope and going off of that. I did this for a few reasons, first of which being that I'm utilizing 6mm arc, which has a relatively flat trajectory out to pretty far distances, but also because it has that bullet drop reticle, or the tree as many people call it. I wanted to utilize the feature set of this scope to its fullest extent, and I felt like holdovers were a great way to do that. And lastly, as far as hunting is concerned, holdovers are great because you can be looking out to 400 yards and not have to be dialed into a specific range. And if you see something at 50 yards walk up, you can quickly move over, get on target, and put in work without having to dial down. So for this example, we're going to use the bullet drop reticle to get from 350 yards up to 400 as quickly as we can, using 2 different hash marks for each distance. That way we can see how effectively we can go from one holdover to the next while staying on target at a long distance. Not bad at all. For some folks, Admitting you're wrong doesn't always come so easy. However, I value myself as a humble and honest man. That being said, I have somewhat of a confession. When I was initially leveling and mounting this scope, I took a peek through the lens, and my first thought was, man, that's some pretty strict eye relief. And even in some of the early clips that'll be in this video, I made a comment that the eye box was tight, the eye relief was unforgiving. But honestly, that changed very shortly after that, when I started noticing that though it is a little bit tighter of an eye box, I found that all my shots were right on target. Even more so than I've felt with a lot of my other scopes that do have a more laxed eye relief. So that got me thinking. While having a little bit more eye relief does give you more of a sight picture, there's another thing that it has potential to do. And that's cause you to be off target. Similar to what parallax does. And in fact, it's almost the exact same scenario. Now, you can, of course, back up off the scope a little bit and see where that eclipse is hanging over to kind of gauge if you're not centered up behind your rifle. But I find with this scope, it kind of forces you to always be exactly centered behind the rifle. And that's definitely a good thing. So it makes you more proficient, guarantees better shot placement. And honestly, I'm starting to prefer it over my other scopes. And quite frankly, this scope ain't coming off my rifle. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, here I am, a man who was wrong. For this one, we're going to be shooting from a table rest, similar to what you might find at your local shooting range. And what we're going to be doing is some quick transitions at various lengths, starting at 200 yards, moving to 250, 300, and ending at 350 yards. This is going to be a great test for this optic for several reasons. One, we're going to be kind of rolling around the rifle, which is going to create some disruption in the eye box and eye relief. And also, since we're going to be varying the distances we're shooting at within that drill, that also means we're going to use different hash marks. So we're going to have to incorporate different holdovers as we go. So honestly, pretty great performance. I didn't have a lot of trouble keeping the eye box clear. I did get kind of hung up on the 250 just because of the angle, but that had nothing to do with the scope. So yeah, man, excellent performance.
So we're in the last 2 days of deer season, and while I didn't get the Heimdall scope in time to do any hunting on the first week, I was able to put down 2 deer last week using this rifle with a different scope. So I'm hoping that we may get lucky, be able to put one down on film with the Heimdall, or maybe even see a coyote. Nevertheless, this low light, overcast, foggy condition is a great test on this, especially because it's 29 degrees, so things like your breathing can really fog up that lens and just the overall condensation. And even though I haven't shot anything with this yet, just looking through the scope, the Heimdall is doing great, and no fog, perfect clarity, even out to 400 or 500 yards. So I really do think that the Heimdall makes a very viable hunting scope. I didn't have time to turn the camera on, but we got a coyote. He was about 100 yards out, and he dropped like a sack of potatoes. Let's see if we can find him now. Well, it wasn't a deer, but the Heimdall got the job done. There he is. Bad day to be a coyote.
So we're now 500 yards away from our hilltop target that you definitely can't see anymore because it's way back on this hill in between the break and these two trees. And while this is the extent of distance I have at my disposal, 500 yards is no walk in the park, and it will definitely serve as a good test for this scope across the board. Especially considering the fact I haven't shot at this distance with this setup, so we'll definitely be putting that bullet drop compensator to work, as I'll have to use data from previous engagements to kind of guess what hash mark to use. On top of that, it somehow got colder, so not only is it below freezing, but now we have wind involved. So that's great. So I went ahead and did a feeler run, and it only took 5 shots to get on target. And honestly, had I trusted my intuition, that might have been even less, because the hash mark I suspected might be the 500 ended up being exactly that. However, I second guessed myself and kind of walked it up, but nevertheless, the scope clarity was great, magnification was great, and the bullet drop compensator once again proved itself worthy. That being said, now that I know my holdover, we're going to go ahead and fire a series of shots, put a bunch of hits on target, and call it good. So I've got a pretty good idea of where my holdover is at this point, so we're going to go ahead and get 3 consecutive shots on target. Nice. Yeah, once again, that bullet drop compensator is just like magic with this caliber at least. But yeah, great results. Very happy with it. And even out to 500 yards, crystal clear, easy to find my holdovers, even in low light, windy conditions. So big thumbs up for long range with this scope. All right, it's getting pretty cold and pretty dim, and coincidentally, I only have a few shots left, so I'm going to go ahead and put them on target. We'll go check our hits and call it a night. So after a long and frigid walk, we're at the 500-yard target to check our hits. And way up there, where that yellow feeder is where we were shooting from. So we've got 7 hits in total here. The first feeler run shot was here, and then I did 2 series of 3 shots consecutively, as you saw, which were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is a pretty good grouping for me, just using a feeler holdover for the first time shooting at that distance. And keep in mind, I'm just a good old boy in below freezing temperatures, hitting play and ripping shots. We're not using windometers or sitting out here for an hour trying to get a perfect grouping. So this is a real world example, and I'll take that all day. Now that the sun has found its way into the horizon, it's a perfect low light setting to test the illuminated reticle. So we're going to go ahead and fire a shot out to 400 yards using the highest illumination setting, as it's not quite dark yet, so the lower settings are going to be harder to pick up. But this will still be a great test of how easy it is to pick up our target at a long range with that illuminated reticle. Not bad at all. Honestly, I could barely even see the target, and that illuminated reticle definitely helped things out. So for my final thoughts on the GUNNR Heimdall 6-24 first focal plane HPVO, I could sum this up quick by telling you guys, this thing's badass. But for the sake of a thorough review, I'm not going to do you like that. To be honest, this scope exceeded my expectations in several ways. But considering the fact that I'm someone who has already owned a GUNNR product and knows the level of quality and craftsmanship that goes into their optics, I really think it says a lot for this to have been able to raise the bar. Now, while oftentimes reviews like this don't give products a full run for their money, this one was certainly an exception. We took this guy out to the range, long distance up to 500 yards, hit some precision shots with it, and even took it out hunting, and were successful in hunting with it. Albeit it wasn't a deer as I had hoped, nevertheless the Heimdall got the job done. Not to mention it withstood high light, low light, heavy fog, condensation, and below freezing temperatures. Now, if that doesn't say something, I don't know what does. So in conclusion, not only do I think the Heimdall outperforms a majority of scopes in its class, but I think it even punches a bit further. So if you're looking for an incredible long-range scope that doesn't break the bank, look no further than the GUNNR Heimdall. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, cheers and God bless. Oh yeah, and don't forget to do all of the things, because this is a relatively small channel, so these videos tend to get buried in the algorithm. That being said, your support is very much needed and greatly appreciated. Much love.
Just a good old boy.